On a cold morning in Kazakhstan, two men stand a few steps apart on a concrete pad. Same face, same hands, same voice. They were born minutes apart from a single egg that split in two, and every letter of their genetic code is a copy of the other's. One of them is about to climb into a Russian rocket. The other is going to drive home. Scott Kelly is 51 years old. In a few hours, he will be strapped into a Soyuz capsule and thrown off this planet at 17,000 miles an hour. He will not touch the ground again for 340 days. His brother Mark will stand in the desert and watch the light disappear, and then go back to Texas, eat dinner, sleep in a bed, and get older at the normal speed. And for the next year, NASA is going to measure both of them. This had never been possible before. To know what space does to a human body, you need a second human body, identical, untouched, kept on the ground as a control. Two identical twins who both happen to be trained astronauts is not something you can arrange. It happened exactly once. NASA built 10 separate research teams around it and took Scott apart biologically before he left, while he was up there, and for years after he came home. What they found was stranger than the damage anyone had predicted, and a piece of it never went back to normal. The change starts before he is finished unbuckling. On Earth, your heart spends every second of your life fighting gravity. It pushes blood uphill to your brain, while gravity drags fluid down into your legs. Your entire circulatory system is built around that fight. In orbit, the fight stops. Within hours, roughly 2 liters of fluid that normally sits in Scott's lower body drifts upward into his chest and head and stays there. His face swells, his neck thickens, his legs get thin. Astronauts call it puffy face, bird legs, and it is not a joke. It is the standard shape of a human being in freefall. His sinuses fill like a permanent head cold. His sense of taste goes flat. His body reads all that fluid in his chest as a flood, too much blood. So it does the logical thing and starts throwing blood away. Within days, he is carrying noticeably less blood volume than the man on the ground with his exact DNA. He is already becoming a different animal. Meanwhile, his spine, with nothing pressing down on it, quietly unstacks. The soft discs between his vertebrae swell with fluid and push apart. Over the mission, Scott grows about 2 inches taller than his identical twin. That sounds like a gift. It is not. The stretching hurts, and long-duration astronauts report serious back pain because of it, and the height is gone within days of landing. By the second month, the subtraction begins. Muscle is expensive, bone is expensive. Your body maintains both only because it keeps receiving a signal that they are needed, and that signal is load. Every step you take, every time you stand up out of a chair, your skeleton is being told it still has a job. Scott's skeleton stops getting the message. Without countermeasures, astronauts lose roughly 1% of bone mass every month, in the hips and the spine first. That is a rate of loss comparable to an elderly woman with osteoporosis, happening to a fit man in his 50s. In the space of a single year, he fights it, 2.5 hours a day, every day, strapped to a treadmill by a harness, hauling against a resistance machine, not for fitness, just to slow the loss down. His heart, at the same time, is doing less work than it has done at any point in his life. And here's a detail that got almost no attention when the results came out. The wall of the carotid artery in his neck thickened over the mission. Arterial wall thickening is something we normally file under aging and heart disease. He was floating in a clean, climate-controlled tube, exercising daily, on a monitored diet. His arteries aged anyway. Then his eyes started to change. This is the effect that quietly frightens NASA because it does not behave like the others. All that fluid that shifted into his head never left. It raises the pressure inside the skull, and the skull has one place where a soft structure meets that pressure directly, the back of the eye. Over months, the back of Scott's eyeballs physically flattened. The head of the optic nerve swelled. Folds appeared in the tissue behind his retina. It has a name now because it happens to most long-duration astronauts. Spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome. Many of them come home needing stronger glasses. In some of them, the flattening never fully reverses. There is no exercise for this one. No harness, no treadmill. As long as there is no gravity, the fluid stays in the head. It is one of the largest unsolved medical problems standing between us and Mars. And it is not radiation, and it is not muscle loss. It is the shape of the eye. The radiation is still there too. The station orbits inside Earth's magnetic field, which deflects most of what the sun throws at it. Even so, Scott absorbed more radiation in that 1 year than he would have in decades on the ground. Astronauts lying in the dark with their eyes shut regularly see flashes of light. That is a charged particle passing straight through the eyeball, and sometimes through the visual cortex itself. When NASA examined his chromosomes, they found structural damage, pieces broken off and rejoined in the wrong place, inversions and translocations, the fingerprint of ionizing radiation cutting DNA, and the cell repairing it imperfectly. Years later, those rearranged cells were still in his body. Cells keep that record for life. But the radiation is not the part that broke the prediction. The landing itself is violent. A Soyuz does not glide. It falls on parachutes and hits the Kazakh steppe hard enough that crews describe it as a car crash. Scott is lifted out by hand because after 340 days, he cannot reliably stand. Now his body has to reverse all of it at once. Gravity grabs the fluid in his head and drags it back down into his legs, and they swell. His blood volume is too low for a planet with gravity, so standing up pulls blood away from his brain and leaves him dizzy and sick. The soles of his feet have not touched a hard surface in almost a year and have gone soft. Astronauts call them baby feet, and the first days of walking genuinely hurt. Then the strange part. Within hours of landing, his skin broke out in a burning rash everywhere anything touched him. A chair, a bedsheet. His skin had gone a year without pressure or friction, and it had, in a sense, forgotten what contact was. He described lying awake with swollen legs, aching joints, and a fever-like exhaustion, feeling worse on Earth than he ever felt in orbit. Most of it did reverse. The height in days, the fluid balance in weeks. The bacteria in his gut drifted in space and drifted back after landing. His immune system had worked the whole time. He was given a flu shot in orbit and responded to it normally. But not everything came back. NASA tracked which of his genes were switched on and off, not the genetic code itself, which does not change, but the activity level of each gene, the volume knob the body turns in response to its environment. In orbit, thousands of those knobs moved. 6 months after landing, about 7% of them still had not returned to where they were before the flight. 7% sounds small until you look at which ones. They cluster in the immune system, in DNA repair, in bone formation, and in the body's response to low oxygen and high carbon dioxide. Exactly the systems that were under pressure up there, half a year back on Earth, and his body was still running a program written for a place he no longer lived in. His cognitive scores did something similar. On the station, he tested normally. After landing, he was slower and less accurate across nearly every test, and the dip lasted far longer than simple readjustment should take, and all of that was the gentle version. A round trip to Mars is closer to 3 years, most of it outside Earth's magnetic field, with no resupply, no emergency return, and a 20-minute delay on every word from home. Scott Kelly's year was the mildest possible sample of what that would do. Here is what all of it points to, and it is the opposite of the way this story usually gets told. Space did not break Scott Kelly's body. Almost every one of these changes is the correct response. Dumping blood volume when the chest is flooded is correct. Releasing bone that is carrying no load is correct. Spending nothing on muscles that lift nothing is correct. His body ran the same logic it runs when you lie in a hospital bed for a month or move to high altitude. It read the environment and rebuilt itself to fit. The problem is that it fit too well. After 340 days, Scott Kelly had a body that was genuinely well designed for a place with no gravity. And then that body was dropped onto a planet pulling at 9.8 meters per second squared. Almost everything that hurt him happened in the first 2 days back. We think of Earth as the safe place and space as the hostile one. His biology disagreed. It treated gravity as the shock. 2 men with identical DNA. One went up, one stayed down, and the only variable between them was a planet. The one who left came home a measurably different organism than the one who stayed. Shorter caps on his chromosomes, a thicker artery, a flatter eye, and 7% of his genes still answering a question nobody was asking anymore. The human body is not built for space. It is worse than that and more interesting. The human body is built to adapt to wherever it is, and it will do that even when the place is trying to kill it, and even when it means it no longer fits the world it has to come back to. Gemerkt, Blöcke gleichmäßig aufteilen, direkt liefern, nicht nachbessern.